Alright, today we're going to go over the Solving Systems of Equations by Graphing worksheet. It's white. It's got 2 pages. The front has checking a solution and the back is graphing. Alright, to check a solution, the first thing you have to do is you have to plug in the values given for x and y. If both equations are true statements, it's a solution. If one is false, it's not a solution. That's it. Alright, the first one is how can you use the graph of a linear system to decide how many solutions? So visually, if the lines intersect, so if you have 2 lines that intersect, there's one solution. So if you have, and I'll say in class, if X marks a spot, there's one solution. All right. If there are 2 lines that are parallel, there are no solutions. Those are supposed to be parallel. If, when you graph it, the lines are on top of each other, or they're the same exact line, that's infinite. Solutions. All right, that's it for number 1. All right, so number 2, we're going to check to see if 6, -1 is a solution. Remember, the first one's x, the second one's y, so I'm just going to plug them in. I'm going to say 4 times 6 minus -1, does that equal 25? Remember, I don't know if that's true. 4 times 6 is 24. Negative times a negative is a positive, that's why it's 24 plus 1. That does equal 25. So I have one solution that's true. Now I have to check the bottom one. I'm going to plug in 6 for x, -1 for y. -3 times 6 minus 2 times -1. Does that equal -16? Remember, I don't know if that's true. -18 plus 2, does that equal -16? It's true. So do yourself a favor and actually explain your answer. Say since, remember I want a complete sentence, since both are true, 6, -1 is a solution. And that's it. Alright, number 3, same exact concept. I have the opposite of x plus 2y equals 3, 10x plus y equals 30. 3 is my x, 0 is my y. I'm going to plug in x and y, so I'm going to say the opposite of 3 plus 2 times 0, does that equal 3? -3, remember that just cancels out. Does -3 equal 3? That's false. I don't even have to check the second one, so I immediately just say, since 1 is false, 3, 0 is not a solution. Done. Alright, number 4, I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to say 2 times -2 minus, instead of y, I'm putting -8. That's supposed to equal 52. 2 times -2 is -4. Minus minus is plus, so -4 plus 8, does that equal 52? It's false. Now I do the bottom one. 9 times -2 minus -8. That's supposed to equal -10. I get -18 plus 8. Does that equal -10? That's true. So I say since 1 is true, negative 2, negative 8 is a solution. Alright, I'm going to try negative 3 and negative 5. So I'm going to plug in the opposite of negative 3 minus negative 5. That's supposed to equal 8. I don't know if it's true or not. The opposite of opposite is positive. So I get 3 plus 5 equals 8. That's true. Now remember, they both have to be true. So I have to check the second one. 2 times negative 3 plus 5 times negative 5. That's supposed to equal negative 31. I don't know if it's true yet or not. Get negative 6 minus 25. That does equal negative 31. So I say since, remember, they both have to be true. Since both are true, negative 3, negative 5 is a solution. That's it for 5. All right, so number 6, I have 10, 8. I'm going to check the first one. I'm going to say negative 3 times times positive 10 minus 8. Does that equal negative 38? I get negative 30 minus 8. That is negative 38. So I'm good so far. Now I have to check the bottom. Negative 8 times 10 plus 8 times 8. Does that equal negative 16? I get negative 80 plus 64. Does that equal negative 16? It does. Since they're both true, I say since both are true, 10, 8 is a solution. All right, number 7. I'm going to plug in 0, 2. So I say 17 times 0 plus 8 times 2. Does that equal 16? That cancels out. 8 times 2, 16 does equal 16, so it's true. I have to check the second one. The opposite of 0 minus 4 times 2. Does that equal 8? I get negative 8 equals 8, and that is false. Now remember, even though the first one's true, it does not matter, since at least one is false. 0, 2 is not a solution. That's it. All right, to graph, you need to make 2 XY charts, and you're going to pick any 3 points for X. Most of the time, I'm going to pick negative 1, 0, and 1, but you can pick whatever you want. You can pick 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, anything you want. You're going to solve all 6 points for Y, and then you're going to graph those lines. All right, so that's the last thing you're going to do is graph the lines. And you're going to see if they intersect. All right. So number 8, we have 2x plus y equals 13, and 5x minus 2y equals 1. All the black writing is going to be for 2x plus y equals 13. So I'm going to make my first xy chart negative 1, 0, and 1. You can pick whatever you want to pick. You could pick 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. I'm just picking these points. I'm going to plug them in for x and y. So I'm going to have 2 times negative 1 plus y equals 13. I'm going to solve for y. So I took negative 1 and I plugged it in right there. I get negative 2 plus y equals 13. I add 2 both sides, y equals 15. Now I plug in 0. 0 is really easy because 2 times 0 is 0 plus y equals 13, so I just get y equals 13. Now, I think the next one's going to be 11. I'm not sure, though. So before I do any work, I think it's going to be 11. If I don't get 11, I recheck my work because that means I made a mistake. So I do 2 times 1 plus y equals 13. I get 2 times 1 is 2 plus y equals 13. I subtract 2 from both sides, and it's 11 just like I thought. So I'm good to go. Now, those won't fit on my graph. So if I want, I can I already proved these are linear, so I can just keep on picking new points. I know the next one's 9. I know the next one's going to be 7. I know 4 is going to be 5. All right. I know 5 is going to be 3. So if I wanted, I could graph those 3 points instead of these 3 points, because then I want to change the scale on my graph. All right. Now I'm going to make a new XY chart. I'm going to use the same points, -1, 0, and 1. I'm going to use that for this line. So I'm going to put 5 times -1 minus 2y. That's supposed to equal 1. I get -5 minus 2y equals 1. I add 5 to both sides. -2y equals 6. So y equals -3. All right, now I do the same thing again. This time I plug in 0. I get -2y equals 1. I divide by -2. Y equals -1/2. Most of you are going to put -0.5. Either way, that's totally okay with me. Now I'm going to plug in 1. I get 5 minus 2y equals 1. I subtract 5 from both sides. I get minus 2y equals 4 negative. I divide by -2. I get y equals 2. All right. If I want to pick more points because I don't want this decimal, I can pick more points if I want. There's a 2.5 gap in between, so I have 2, 4.5. I have 3, 7. All right. So the points I'm going to graph is I'm going to graph this one, I'm going to graph this one, and I'm going to graph this one. So I don't have to have any messy points on my graph. All right. So I'm just going to make my XY charts on the next page. I took those XY charts, and look, I only used the points that work nicely. So my black line, I'm going to go over 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go up to 7, put a dot. I'm going to go over 4, up to 5, put a dot. I'm going to go over 5, up to 3, put a dot. Now, in class, I changed the scale. That's an option too, but I know you guys didn't like changing the scale. All right, so this is an option as well. Now I'm going to do my red graph. I go -1, -3. I go over 1, up 2. I go 3, 7. Oh, that's a terrible line. All right. That's the point that intersects. So 3, 7 is the solution. If you want to check it, you're more than welcome to. That's it for number 8. All right, so I'm going to make my XY chart. For the top one, -1, 0, and 1 is my starting 3 points. I'm going to plug in -1 for x. I get -1 plus 2y equals 9. I add 1 to both sides. I get 2y equals 10. I get y equals 5. I'm going to plug in 0. 0 plus 2y equals 2y equals 9. I divide by 2. I get y equals 4.5. Now going into the next one, I think it's going to be 4. Let's find out. I have 1 plus 2y equals 9. I subtract 1 from both sides. I get 2y equals 8. So yes, y is equal to 4 after I divide both sides by 2. This means it's linear. So if you want to keep on going, you can say 2, 3.5, 3, 3. Now I got 3 points that don't have any decimals for those of you who hate decimals in your graphs. Okay? Now I'm going to move on. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make an XY chart. I'm going to start with -1, 0, and 1. I'm going to plug in -1. The opposite of -1 plus 4y equals 8. I have 1 plus 4y equals 8. I subtract 1 from both sides. I get 4y equals 9. Divide by 4, I get y equals, I get, subtract from both sides, I get 7. I get y equals 1.75. Now I'm going to do 0. Plug in 0. I get 4y equals 8. So I get y equals 2. Now I think the next one's going to be 2.25. When I plug it in, I get -1 plus 4y equals 8. I add 1 both sides. I get 4y equals 9. Divide by 4. I get y equals 2.25, just like I thought. Now I'm going to do 2 is going to be 2.5. 3 is going to be 2.75. 4 is going to be 3. So I'm going to use 0, 2. I'm going to use 4, 3. I guess I'll use 2, 2.5. Those are going to be the 3 best ones to use. So now that I picked the best points to use, so I don't have to change my scale and I don't have to have nasty fractions, even though 2.5 is on there, I'm going to make my graph. So I'm going to go left 1, up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go right 1, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go over 3, up 3. Alright, that's my line. Do my best to make a line. It's the hardest part probably on my phone is making that line. Now I'm going to make my red line. I'm going to go 0, 2, 2, 2.5. I'm going to go over 4, up to 3. And to me it looks like it's going to cross at like 2, 2.5. Or I will say like 3, 2.5 or something like that. Maybe it's crossing at 3, 3, but it's right around there. So I'm going to say, we're going to say like 2.5, 2.5. How about that? Is the solution. And this is a good problem that shows why graphing is not always the best method, because it's really hard to see where it's crossing at. Alright, so number 10, we have negative 2x plus y equals 5, x plus y equals 2. The first thing I'm going to do is make my xy chart. So I have negative 1, 0, and 1. I'm going to plug it in. So I'm going to say negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2 plus y equals 5. I subtract 2 from both sides, I get y is equal to 3. Now I do 0. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, so I get y equals 5. I hope the next one's 7. I plug in 1, I get negative 2 plus y equals 5. Y is indeed 7. So that one's nice and easy. Alright. Now I'm going to do the next one. I have x plus y equals 2. So I make my xy chart. Negative 1, 0, and 1. I plug in negative 1, so I get negative 1 plus y equals 2. I add 1 on both sides, I get y equals 3, so I get negative 1, 3. Plug in 0, I get y is equal to 2. Plug in 1, I get 1 plus y equals 2. So I get y equals 1, just like I thought it would be. 3 easy ones to graph, so that's what I'm going to do next. Alright, so the red line was negative 1, go up to 3. 0, go up to 5. 1, go up to 7. Alright, the next one, the black line. I have negative 1, go up to 3. 0, 2. 1, 1. That's a terrible line. And look, they intersect at negative 1, 3. So negative 1, 3 is the solution. Don't forget to tell me what the solution is after all that work. Number 11, I have 3x plus 4y equals 10, minus 7x minus y equals negative 10. First thing I'm going to do is make an xy chart. Negative 1, 0, 1 to start. I plug in negative 1 for x, so I get negative 3 plus 4y equals 10. I add 3 to both sides, I get 4y equals 13. So I get y equals 13 over 4, which is 3.25. Now I plug in 0. 4y equals 10. I divide both sides by 4. I get y equals 10 over 4, or 5 halves, or you're probably going to put 2.5. Now I plug in 1. 3 plus 4y equals 10. I subtract 3 from both sides. I get 4y equals 10, or equals 7. So y equals 7/4, or 1.75. None of those are really nice. So, they're going down by 0.75s. So if you wanted to do 2, 1, there's at least one nice point. But it's not really nice at all. So I'll at least do 2, 1 on there. Alright, the second XY chart. I have negative 1, 0, and 1. I'm going to plug in negative 1 first, so I get minus 7x minus y equals minus 10. I don't have minus 7x. It's positive 7 because I'm plugging in negative 1. And then I subtract 7 from both sides. I get negative y equals negative 17. So y equals positive 17. Now I plug in 0. I get minus y equals minus 10. So y equals positive 10. Now I think the next one should be 3. So I hope when I plug in 1 I get 3. I get minus 7 minus y equals negative 10. I add 7 to both sides. I get minus y equals minus 3. So y equals 3. Now, I don't want to put 17 on my graph because it's really, I'll have to change my scale. So I'm not even going to use 17. I'm going to go 2, and I'm going to use negative 4. So I'm going to use these 3 points because I can squeeze 0, 10 on my graph. And I definitely can put 1, 3, and 2, negative 4. Okay? All right, so I'm going to graph the black line first. So 0, 2.5. 2, 1's not too bad. 1, 1.75, that's kind of bad, but it is just a little bit more than a half. So it does make a line, even though it's not super, super pretty. All right, that's not terrible. Now I'm going to do 0, 10. So there's 0, 8. I'm going to go up 2. I think 0, 10 is about right there. But 1, 3 is really easy. 1, 3. And then we're going to say 2, negative 4. All right, so after looking at this, it looks like to me it's going to be about 1.5. We'll say 1.5, 1.5. All right, and that's it for 11. All right, 12. If you just want to use slope-intercept form, it's really easy because it's already in that form. If you're going to use the XY chart, so for the top line, use the denominator to choose x's. So I'm going to choose, because that's 6, I'm going to choose negative 6, 0, and 6. It's just going to make my life much easier. So I plug in negative 6. I get 1 6 times negative 6. That's negative 1 minus 2. So I get y equals negative 3. 0 is just negative 2. That's why it's slope-intercept form. And then I'm going to plug in 6. I'm going to get 1 minus 2 is negative 1. All right? Black line. Same concept. I could use slope-intercept form, but if I'm going to use the denominator to do negative 6, 0, and 6. Negative 6 times negative 1, 6, positive 1. Positive 1 plus 2 is 3. 0 gives me plus 2, and then it's going to be 1. All right? So now I make my XY charts. I have negative 6, positive 3. 0, 2, and then 6, 1. For the red line, I'm going to have negative 6, negative 3, just 0, negative 2, and then positive 6, negative 1. So I'm going to graph the red line first. I'm going to go left 6 down to negative 3. I'm going to go 0, negative 2. I'm going to go 6 down to negative 1. All right, there's the line. And I messed up that first dot. It should be right here, not right there. All right, I'm going to connect the dots now. All right, black line. I'm going to do negative 6, positive 3, 0, 2, 6, 1. And they're going to eventually cross out here. We're going to find out that is going to be at 12, 0. All right, so 12, 0 is the solution. That one's once again hard to guess because it falls outside the graphing range. All right, so 13. If you want, you can make XY charts, negative 1, 0, and 1. If you want to use slope-intercept form, that's fine too. Plug it in, negative 1 times 5 is negative 5, so y is equal to negative 5. Plug in 0, you get 0. Plug in 1, you get 5. All right, red line. Same thing, XY chart. Negative 1, 0, and 1. Negative 1, I plug in, I get negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. 0, I get 4. 1, I get 5. All right, there's my points. Alright, I graph it. I go left 1, down 5, 0, 0, 1 up to 5. There's my line. Red line. I go negative 1, positive 3, 0, 4, 1, 5. I can already see the intersection is at 1, 5. So 1, 5 is the solution. Okay. Alright, 14 is a little bit more difficult because when I go to pick x's, since x has to equal 5, I can't pick x's. So x has to be 5 no matter what. That's all that says. It just means you have to pick y's instead. So I just pick negative 1, 0, and 1. So I picked these. I picked those y's. Those were my choice. Alright? And it's the same, it's very similar when we do the other part, x, y. You can't pick the y's. All the y's have to be 1. But you can pick the x's, negative 1, 0, and 1. Alright, so the red line, I go 5, 0, 5, 1, 5, negative 1. It's an up and down line. Alright, now I do the black line. Negative 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. Now it's a left and right line. So if it's x, it's vertical. If it's horizontal, or if it's y, it's horizontal. So it's really easy to see the solution. The solution is just going to be x first, 5, 1 is the solution. That's it for 14. Alright, we're about to run out of time, so part 1 of this video only goes up to 14. I'll make another video real quick.